It's good to be back after a period of inactivity due to some anticipatory driver shufflings for the 2016 season, but there are still 5 races to go for the 2015 FF1M season. Here's the first of those 5, the Belgian Grand Prix, coming to you from the magnificent Spa Francorchamps circuit, somewhere near the town of Liège, somewhere in eastern Belgium. Everybody loves this circuit, although in recent years in real life it has been sanitised a bit due to tarmac runoffs, but the beauty of this version is that we can use whatever we like. Here we've gone for the 2001 variant of Spa, where they're just starting to tarmac things, but it still has the best version of the bus stop chicane, the twin curb hoppers. Last time out in Austria, Fernando Alonso and Tornado took a crushing win, and the Spaniard now extends his lead in the championship to 28 points over Sebastian Vettel, who has been a bit ropey in recent races, only 3 points in the past 4 races. 2 of those races were retirements, and one of them was from the race lead at Hockenheim, so he can consider himself a tad unlucky. There's a look at these circuits, and we are expecting 2 stops all around. So as mentioned in the intro, there are some driver shufflings going on for the 2016 season. More immediately, there is a new driver on the grid for this race. Keep an eye out for him as we go through the qualifying grid, although we're going to be waiting quite a while because he is last. And not even slightly last either. Oh well. The informed team at the moment appears to be Meister, as they've taken second in the Constructors' Championship for now, and the informed driver Felipe Massa starts on pole position for the second time this season, ahead of Sebastian Vettel in the shake and bake. Kimi Raikkonen will start third ahead of Nico Rosberg in the Willows. Again, Rosberg has been a bit unlucky in recent races. Romain Grosjean starts an impressive 5th for Pedersen, ahead of Valtteri Bottas in 6th for GRM. And then row 4 sees Nico Hülkenberg starting 7th, last season's winner at Spa, and Jenson Button all the way up in 8th. Now that he's announced his retirement, he's started performing better. Coincidence? Probably. Gonzalez starts 9th ahead of Itsuki Yoshida in 10th, that's highest that he's been for quite a while. Hamilton 11th ahead of Fernando Alonso, only 12th, but Alonso was only half a second behind pole sitter Massa, so it's not all doom and gloom for the Spaniard. Cooper Lee and Sergio Perez share row 7 in the Mitchell and the Pedersen respectively. Daniel Ricciardo 15th ahead of Robert Kubica in 16th, highest of the 2 Gajeras. Then Carlos Sainz 17th, and FJR struggling a little bit with Kevin Magnussen in 18th position. On the mediums as well, Jean-Eric Verne 19th ahead of Stoffel van Dorn 20th, and then the back row we've got Antonio Felix da Costa, and the first Welshman to take part in an FF1M race, Benjamin Pryor. He was over a second slower than da Costa. Part of it might have been down to the hard tyres, but most of it is probably because he's a new boy. From Juanfire Perhuinge Gagarachwinchopchansilio Gogogoch in Anglesey. And on that note, let's move on to the race start. There's 3 lights, there's 4 lights, there's 5 lights, Massa on the left, Vettel on the right. And the 5 lights go out. Who's gotten away best? Massa's gotten away well, but Vettel has gotten away even better. He's already ahead of Massa before they even reach the braking zone of La Source. Some lockups from Jenson Button, but it is Sebastian Vettel who powers through into the lead. Nico Rosberg moves up into 2nd position, and Massa down to 3rd. Now into Eau Rouge and Radion. The left of Eau Rouge and then the right left of Radion. Vettel extending his lead a bit. Massa's trying to fight back on Felipe Massa as we go down to the Kemmel Straight. Long straight. Let's see how much engine modes these teams are using. But Massa not quite making it up to 2nd position. Valtteri Bottas moving up to 5th ahead of Romain Grosjean, so the Finn has gained a place over the Frenchman. And it's Sebastian Vettel taking a very wide line going through Rivage, but no problems so far. Vettel on the mediums this time around has taken the softs in the previous couple of races, but they haven't worked. So Shake and Bake going a little bit harder on their tyre selection. Have they gone aggressive with the race strategy? We'll find out in due course. On board with Romain Grosjean on these soft tyres, looking to retake that 5th position away from Valtteri Bottas going through the Fagnes chicane. Not quite managing it, in fact not even attempting an overtake. There is Fernando Alonso. Let's see his tyres, they are the blue ringed hard tyres. Tornado going for the hards in this race. And Button is in a Tornado sandwich. Button challenging Gonzalez going through Blanchimont, but not quite managing it there. Tucking back into the slipstream, into the second part. And Grosjean, well, he's got Valtteri Bottas defending from him, and Alonso making a move on Button and one of the Mitchells of Hulkenberg, who stopped on the outside of the second apex of bus stop. He's got a nudge from one of the Andrews to help him back onto the circuit by Daniel Ricciardo. So that was a clumsy one from Hulkenberg, who's leaving Mitchell at the end of this season. And that's the first of the driver changes mentioned so far. Mitchell on his way to FJR to team up with Kevin Magnussen. And that's going to be quite an interesting and potentially explosive driver lineup as we have a look at Thomas Gonzalez taking a position off of Romain Grosjean before they reach the braking zone of the Lecum chicane. The right, left, and then the right of Malmedy. All the way onto the curbs. Now then, what's going to happen next? Through Rivage, no such problems for Thomas Gonzalez as he now sets off after Valtteri Bottas. 5th position. Here's Romain Grosjean having a look at Thomas Gonzalez, trying to take a position back, going through Blanchimont, but not making that one stick. Grosjean looks as if he's got much less fuel compared to Thomas Gonzalez. Out the inside into the bus stop. Grosjean retakes 6th position off of the Argentine driver who clatters over the curbs. And now he's going to put himself under threat from Fernando Alonso. On board with the Spaniard of Alonso, who just sets the fastest lap of the race. 7.4 seconds behind Vettel, but quicker than the German, so that's doable. Going through Eau Rouge Radion. Has he got enough of a slipstream? I don't think he has. And I wonder if Tornado might have gone a little bit more aggressive in the racer's strategy. If Alonso is this quick early on, it is possible. So through Lecum and Malmedy. Alonso moving to X-Lite next season, having a look at Gonzalez into Pouon. That's very risky, and rightly so, backing out of that one. But Alonso moving to X-Lite, where he'll be partnered by Romain Grosjean. That is a very, very strong driver lineup that James Whiteley and the X-Lite team have got for next season. Other lineups, Shake and Bake had their lineup confirmed before silly season even started, so Vettel and Yoshida will be teammates once again for next season. And Tornado, they had Gonzalez confirmed before silly season. They'll be joined by Sergio Perez, the Mexican currently driving for Pedersen and currently sits 18th in the race. 2 Tornadoes going into combat with each other into the bus stop. Alonso slightly half-hearted attempt going through there, but Gonzalez holding on for now. So there's no team orders between the 2 Tornado drivers so far, although I think Tobias wish there would be, because Vettel is in the lead by 1.7 seconds from Nico Rosberg. It's 2 Meisters, 3rd and 4th, a very impressive Meister team who have retained both drivers for next season. Massa and Raikkonen will be teammates once again. Bottas holding 5th for GRM, who also have retained both drivers, Bottas and Sainz, teammates for next season. And here we go again, the 2 Tornadoes. Alonso looking very quick at this stage of the race. He has got only 8 laps of fuel remaining, so he's going to be making an early first pit stop. So he does need to get past Gonzalez very, very quickly if he's going to make an impact on this race. Here's lap 4, which is twice as many laps as both Tornado drivers managed last season. Verne and Senna both crashed out on the second lap. So Tornado have already done much better at this year's Belgian Grand Prix compared to last season, but here comes Alonso again, slightly half-hearted attempt and making an absolute... Oh, he made a porridge of that exit, and he's lost a lot of time to his teammate. Who's he got behind? He's got... And here's Gonzalez on lap 5 of the race, going through Stavolo. This is where Senna crashed out last season, and Gonzalez just about avoided that one, but now here comes Fernando Alonso up the inside at the first part of Blanchimont, and he's got him. Gonzalez losing a position to the Spaniard, so that will help Fernando's race. Won't help Gonzalez's that much. He's having to go back at Alonso against the bus stop chicane, and clattering over the curbs once again. Alonso again making a dog's breakfast of the bus stop chicane. Here we go on board. This is the small error that Gonzalez made, missing the apex and getting a bit wide onto the curb, and that'll let Alonso through for the moment. And then Gonzalez had a look back. Here's Jenson Button we're having a look at, who is under pressure from Stoffel Vandoorne going into Leclerc. He's way too quick into that corner and he's having a big spin. He's going to rejoin back onto the track. Not quite. But Jenson Button continues his absolute misery of 2015. Here's Jean-Eric Vergne now having a look at Nico Hülkenberg for 13th. Looks very unlikely that Hülkenberg is going to repeat his 2014 victory. But let's see what he can do anyway. Through Eau Rouge Raidillon. That's a good exit out of there for Jean-Eric Vergne. There's been an incident up ahead, so who has gone off? Or is this Jenson Button? Well, let's find out. It might be Grosjean, actually. I think Grosjean's had an off at Leclerc, as Fernando Alonso has a look at the Frenchman. Very aggressive and scares Grosjean off the road. And Grosjean having an identical spin as to what Jenson Button had. So Pedersen's quest for points has pretty much been tarnished at that one corner. Alonso's quest for points looking a little bit more strong compared to Grosjean. He's already at the back of Bottas now. And speaking of Pedersen, they have got Nico Rosberg, and they've brought forward Nicholas Latifi, the Canadian driver currently racing in FF2M, having a decent season. Might be a bit early for him to be racing in FF1M, but you never know, he could shine. Alonso up the inside once again, nearly causing a massive aeroplane crash, going through Blanchimont. This is on Valtteri Bottas for 5th position. Alonso now up the inside. And again, not really making... Oh, Bottas clunking the curb and spinning right into the path of Fernando Alonso. And Bottas hanging on to that 5th position just about. Now he's got Thomas Gonzalez lurking up to the back of him. And Stoffel Vandoorne as well making big inroads due to that quite comical little incident. See, Alonso backed out of it and Bottas just decided to completely jump the curb, and the bouncing effect on the GRM meant that he had a half spin and delayed the two tornadoes. Steaming into the pits goes Nico Rosberg for his first pit stop. It's a very early one, only on the 10th lap. Let's see first how much fuel he takes on, and let's also see how much the new tyres plays into effect. That's 20 laps of fuel. That's going to take him to lap 31. So Rosberg going long like American football. Temporarily, the two Meisters move up into 2nd and 3rd position, as into the pits on the same lap goes Fernando Alonso, taking on 18 laps of fuel this time. And a 5.2 second stop for the Spaniard, rejoins nearer Pedersen. That could be Sergio Perez. I think it is Perez. So he's rejoined in 13th position, in 12th position actually, because here comes Sergio Perez having a look at the inside. That's not to be recommended, and rightfully so, backing out of that. Future tornado driver Sergio Perez, so if he'd have caused an accident with Alonso, that would have been his contract immediately terminated. But he's having a think about overtaking Alonso going into Leclerc, but backing out of that one. Now Alonso on the fresher tyres can make some headway. First target would be Carlos Sainz for 12th position. On board with Nico Rosberg now, looking to take the first of the two Meisters. Again, not an overtaking place, but Raikkonen sensibly leaves him space. Now, can he get enough of a run coming out the second Blanchimont? No, he can't, but Kimi Raikkonen choosing to defend the inside line slightly. They go through the bus stop 1. Here's bus stop 2, Rosberg missing the first curb. Vettel staying out on track for the moment. He's got 13.4 seconds over Felipe Massa and 16.4 seconds over Nico Rosberg. What other teams have I not covered yet in terms of the silly season? We've got the two Mitchells. They've got Lewis Hamilton, who'll be moving over from Exolite to the Mitchell team. That's his 7th team in 7 seasons. Quite a remarkable stat. And Hamilton will be partnering Cooper Lee. And Rosberg once again up the inside of Blanchimont and not quite making that mistake. This is crucial now because Sebastian Vettel is in the pits for his first pit stop. As Rosberg now at the inside into the bus stop chicane, and he's managed to take the position off of Kimi Raikkonen. Now where is Vettel? There is Vettel. Out of the pits. Where's Felipe Massa? And more importantly, where is Nico Rosberg? So out of the pits, 6.3 seconds stop. A little bit slower than compared to the others, but he's still in the lead. That was the first stint for Sebastian Vettel. And here comes Fernando Alonso moving up the inside of Jean-Eric Vergne into the bus stop chicane. And that was a much, much more cleaner effort. And a much more decisive one as well. Now we have a look. In fact, it's Robert Kubica, not Jean-Eric Vergne. But it's Stoffel Vandoorne now having a look at the inside of Robert Kubica going into Lecombe and making that one stick. Vandoorne has stopped, Kubica hasn't. So that will explain some of that. Although the Willows is not too bad. And out goes Cooper Lee. Cooper Lee out of the race at Lecombe. So what's the prognosis on this particular problem for Mitchell? And Marshall's taken a while to come to the Australian driver from Darwin. Palmerston City. And it's a transmission problem, so somewhere in the gearbox or drive shaft has gone a bit wrong. Probably the gearbox if he's been breaking down from... Oh, that's contact between Rosberg and Massa going into the bus stop. And rather rudely, Rosberg takes second position. And Massa stranding and Raikkonen off, and then they're all going off at the bus stop. So Massa's proving to be a bit of a roadblock, and Vandoorne, he's lost it. That was careless, and some more drivers losing it as well. That's going to create a massive problem. Here's Jenson Button looking at Itsuki Yoshida for 18th position, and tagging the back of the Japanese driver. That must be Vandoorne, who's still trying to recover. Massa has recovered. And that's Hamilton versus Alonso. Hamilton's got some pace on these tyres. So Alonso's early pit stop not exactly paying off so far, but we've still got drivers yet to make their first stop, and they include Raikkonen, Bottas, Gonzalez. Perez, I believe, has made a pit stop, and Magnussen also making a pit stop, as well as big contact between Yoshida and Button. And Button was trying to be a bit optimistic going through on the inside, and both drivers are very angry with each other there. That's Grosjean taking Da Costa for 18th position. That's the recovering Roman Grosjean. And look, Yoshida and Button are still together. There's going to be more contact between those two in due course. As later than many, Raikkonen and Bottas make their first pit stops, and I think Gonzalez is due in the pits soon as well. So a difference of 7 or so laps between... Oh, and being held up, that's Bottas taking the position off of Kimi Raikkonen. That is a net third position for Valtteri Bottas. As Sergio Perez also comes into the pits. In fact, that's Lewis Hamilton coming up to the slot as well. So Hamilton's made some great ground before in the first round of pit stops. Through the bus stop, this is Fernando Alonso we're on board with, and making a mess of that, and nearly taking himself out of the race. In fact, he's side by side with Jean-Eric Vergne. That's for 6th position, and he's lost that position. So very clumsy race for Fernando Alonso. Only 12th on the grid, and trying some very unusual stuff. Here is Robert Kubica making a move on Carlos Sainz for 10th position at the bus stop. And Sainz probably went over the grass at that point. And out goes Vandoorne. Stoffel Vandoorne out of the race. And the Marshal pushing away the broken down Willows, which has suffered a suspension failure. So 2 retirements in this race so far, and they are Cooper Lee and Stoffel Vandoorne. Vandoorne's might prove a bit of a worry for Nico Rosberg. This is Thomas Gonzalez making his move on Nico Hülkenberg for 8th position. Everyone has made their first stops now, and we've got Sebastian Vettel some 20 seconds. This is the 2 Tornadoes going at it once again into Pouhon. This time it's Gonzalez versus Alonso. Gonzalez looks to be the quicker driver at the moment. He made his first stop much, much later than Alonso. Alonso did eventually get ahead, but now it's Gonzalez who is the quicker driver. It's Vettel who leads from Rosberg. Valtteri Bottas is up into 3rd position. And we got Kimi Raikkonen 4th. Lewis Hamilton 5th, Jean-Eric Vergne 6th, and then the battling Tornadoes for 7th position, with Alonso ahead of Gonzalez for the moment. But Gonzalez is in the slipstream. He's got a run coming out of the second Blanchimont, and up the inside. And is there going to be contact? There's a bit of weaving about. Oh my! What on earth was that from Gonzalez? He took way too much curb on the first apex, and as a result spun it. And that's put Kubica ahead of Alonso now. Tornado's not having a particularly good race. Here's a replay of that. You can see he turns in way too early and clunks the curb and spins round as a result. Now he's rejoining, spins onto the grass, and there goes Hülkenberg past Gonzalez, and Fernando Alonso has blown an engine, so it goes from bad to worse for the two Tornadoes. So that's a potential lump out of Alonso's championship lead. And he's been twatted from behind. Excuse my language, who hit him? That was... I have to get a better view of that one, but Alonso getting duffed up the back by another driver. Well, it's hard to see from that angle. Let's focus on the Pedersen, making a move on Nico Hülkenberg potentially for 8th position now. Going through Blanchimont now into the bus stop, and that's a tight one. And is there contact? Not quite. That's good racing between those two. Good, respectful racing between Perez and Hülkenberg. And coming up to this, Kevin Magnussen as well for the FGR, which has been off the pace in qualifying. It was Felipe Massa who hit the back of Fernando Alonso. And looking at that, let's put a new nose on it and you should be fine. So Kevin Magnussen, where did he start? He started 18th on the grid. And my sources tell me that FGR running mode 1 for this race. He's having a look at Carlos Sainz for 9th now. Kevin Magnussen having a storming drive as Sainz gets it a bit messily going through the bus stop and is going to become under pressure from Thomas Gonzalez and Daniel Ricciardo. Meanwhile, Magnussen's teammate for this and the next race, Benjamin Pryor, down in 18th at the moment, but he's still running. And for the next race, FJR are planning to run mode 3. This is Gonzalez having a look into... And so there's a contact, and unlike last season with Chandok and Raikkonen, both get away with it. That's a terrifying one, but they both survived. And Gonzalez now up the inside of Sainz, going through on the Kemmel Straight into Lecum. And that is a position gain for Gonzalez. That's 10th position. Now he's going to have to try and catch Kevin Magnussen for 9th position. And we've got Sergio Perez up in 8th position at the moment, so Perez has not had a bad drive. As Sainz now defends from Daniel Ricciardo. That's now a battle for 11th. There's Magnussen in front, and there's Gonzalez behind. It is still Vettel, and we're now past half distance, leading by 25 seconds over Rosberg and Bottas. But will it be Bottas versus Rosberg? Because Bottas is on the move inside at the bus stop, and that's a position gain for Valtteri Bottas up into 2nd. For the GRM, whose season's gone slightly off the boil, we had Sainz finishing 7th last time out in Austria, but Bottas has had a few missed opportunities. He had a bit of a crash at Hungary in that absolutely carnage-ridden race. That was from 2nd position. He and Sainz feature quite highly up the front. And Rosberg, I think on older tyres, might be struggling a bit now, because he's some more than a second a lap off the pace compared to Sebastian Vettel. And that early pit stop on lap 10, he didn't jump Vettel, and now he's dropping back a bit on old tyres. Yeah, just going back to GRM, let's see the results they've had previously. They had Sainz finishing 7th last time out of Hungary, but the previous point score before that was at Silverstone. That was once again with Sainz. He's not done too badly, and I think, on balance, he does deserve another shot next season. So, a good, sensible move from GRM. Speaking of moves, here's Raikkonen versus Rosberg, contact between the two, and they get away with it. So now the battle for 3rd position, and Raikkonen having a good run out of the bus stop. Is he going to make a move into La Source? Very rarely you see overtakes here, but Raikkonen has done just that. Accelerating out of La Source now. This is where Raikkonen had that monster shunt for Exolite last season. But luckily Rosberg is nowhere near making an overtake. But are Willows running higher engine modes? Let's see on the remainder of this straight. Meister don't have access to higher engine modes, and Raikkonen is thinking about defending, but ultimately I think he'll be okay. Here's Jean-Eric Vergne now challenging Lewis Hamilton, as out of the race goes Yoshida with a transmission issue. That's a worry for the race leader Sebastian Vettel. Vergne takes 5th position off of Lewis Hamilton, and we got Kubica, the other Gajera, in 7th, and Sergio Perez in 8th. Gajera maintaining their driver lineup for next season. Jean-Eric Vergne and Robert Kubica getting another chance. Willows, meanwhile, Van Dorn was confirmed before the silly season began, but he's now been joined by Max Verstappen, who is an FF2M Championship contender. That one will be a very interesting one to watch out for. And one more team to confirm, the Andrew Racing team, and they have maintained Ricciardo and Da Costa. That's Hamilton coming back at Jean-Eric Vergne. Now into the bus stop. Lewis sensibly staying behind on the yellow-banded medium tyres. And X-Lite will be having Megatron engines next season along with GRM, so Shake and Bake's Megatron users now have customers. Well done. As Kimi Raikkonen comes into the pits for his second pit stop. On now his 28th lap. Thomas Gonzalez, this is versus Kevin Magnussen for 9th position. How aggressive is Magnussen going to defend? Not very, because it looks like Tornado's higher engine modes, if they are indeed running higher engine modes, are clearly much faster than the Judd engines, which are not running higher engine modes. Zoom into the pits goes Valtteri Bottas from 2nd position, so he's the first out of himself and Sebastian Vettel to make a pit stop, but remember, Vettel is a long way out in front, so barring any mechanical misfortune, Vettel should have this race wrapped up. But we said that about Vettel at Hockenheim, and that ended in a massive barbecue. 7.2 seconds is Valtteri Bottas' second pit stop. Out of the pits at La Source. Now where is Kimi Raikkonen in amongst this? There goes the elder Finn, and he's somewhere behind the younger Finn. As Vettel tries to break the speed limit, but the speed limit line goes there. Into his pit box. Antonio Felix da Costa in the pits as well. And 4.8 seconds, that is a cracking stop for Sebastian Vettel. That should maintain the lead regardless of whereabouts Rosberg is. Rosberg having to make a second pit stop. I think he should be in on this lap actually. He's not crossed the start-finish line yet. Still hasn't crossed the start-finish line. I think he might actually be in the pits now. Yep, there it is. Nico Rosberg in the pits for his second pit stop. So Jean-Eric Vergne and Robert Kubica have yet to make their second pit stops. They're running 5th and 6th so far. Hamilton 7th. Sergio Perez in 8th has made his second pit stop. And there's Rosberg rejoining in 4th position. As into the pits comes Thomas Gonzalez. Now Gonzalez is hoping that he rejoins still ahead of Kevin Magnussen, who made his second pit stop before the Argentine. And a good stop, 5.1 seconds. That might just about do it for Thomas. As out of the pits through La Source. In fact, that is Daniel Ricciardo. So Gonzalez rejoins 10th. Here comes Kevin Magnussen. He's trying to get a bit of a run on Gonzalez. He's having a look at Radion and... oh, not quite managing it there. Thought there was going to be another aeroplane crash. But now Magnussen in the slipstream of Gonzalez. Now let's see what the Judd is like in the slipstream of a higher engine mode, probably Climax car. And there you can see just not enough grunt on the straight. So Gonzalez maintains 10th position, but Ricciardo has got a second pit stop to make. So this should be a net 9th position for Thomas. In fact, he's out of the race! That's pulling out of the race is Gonzalez. Right in front of Felipe Massa. That's parked in a bit of a precarious position, but the marshals are efficient at Spa. There's one of them now, as Ricciardo comes into the pits from 9th position, and it's a loose wheel, so Tornado's mechanics not fitting Gonzalez's wheels on properly. So that leaves Hamilton in 8th position because Gonzalez was out of the points. Now we have got a battle for 3rd position between Kimi Raikkonen and Nico Rosberg. through Stavelot 1 and then Stavelot 2. I think it might be called the Paul Frere curve now, but to me it's usually known as the Stavelot curves. Now onto the long flat-out section, going through Blanchimont. Rosberg got a very good run out of the second part, and again having to back out of it, going through the first Blanchimont. And as a result, I don't think he's close enough to have a look at Raikkonen going into the first bus stop. Just behind that is a lapped Benjamin Pryor, I think, who is 17th. I think he just lost a position to Jenson Button, but in his first race, he's still running. And he'll have another chance at Monza before Cristobal Alvarez gets his turn for Sepang and Shanghai. And then Charles Pic will be returning for the Japanese Grand Prix, the final race of the season. That's a bit of a last hurrah for the Frenchman, as he does not have a drive for next season. Now in the slipstream of Raikkonen is Rosberg up the inside now at the Kemmel Straight. This looks like a done deal unless Raikkonen does something super brave, not managing it as Nico Rosberg takes third position. Now, can he do something about about Valtteri Bottas? Can Rosberg do something about himself? In fact, he is doing something about himself because his pit indicator's on. Rosberg does have an issue. This is going to move Kimi Raikkonen back up to third position. You can see the Meister gobbling up the distance between himself and the Willows. And Rosberg, it's wide line and nearly taking Kimi Raikkonen out, but out of the race, tragically once again, goes the Willows. Nico Rosberg losing another podium position, potentially, and fronts it into the barrier in frustration. So that does move Raikkonen back up to third. Jean-Eric Vergne and Robert Kubica now fourth and fifth for the two Gajieras. And it's a loose wheel, so that's worked its way a bit loose. And Vettel has got an issue. That's his pit indicator on. So that's... He's pulling off. Is he pulling off? He is pulling off! Sebastian Vettel pulling out of the race from the race lead. Look at that left rear. That is a punctured tyre. And that has completely ruined his chance at taking a big gobble out of Fernando Alonso's championship lead as he reverses it through Eau Rouge. What's he doing? He's going to move it back onto the circuit. Now there's some cars. Where are the cars? Oof, there's one of them. He might have just gotten away with it. That Marshall was close to death as Valtteri Bottas moves into the lead. So awful look for Sebastian Vettel. And yeah, you can't really say much other than that. What have we got here? We've got Nico Hülkenberg having a look at Sainz for 11th position, going through the bus stop chicane. And Hülkenberg, well, in mid-10th position now with Sebastian Vettel's retirement. So what's that done for the race order? Well, it's put Valtteri Bottas into the lead. What could be his first win of the season? Kimi Raikkonen now second, Jean-Eric Vergne and Robert Kubica third and fourth. That's useful points for the two Gajieras. Sergio Perez in 5th position now for Pedersen. That will do their championship much good. In fact, the teams battling for last in the championship are Pedersen, Mitchell, FJR and Exelite. 3 of those teams are in the points at the moment, with Mitchell, the 4th of those teams, not in the points. The highest, Nico Hülkenberg, in 10th. So Perez could give Pedersen a massive jump, but Hamilton 6th, Magnussen up to 7th, and Daniel Ricciardo in 8th. So that fight for last in the championship, very, very tasty. As the GRM of Bottas goes on his very serene way. Been quick all race. A bit fortunate with Vettel's retirement. And Rosberg's for that matter as well. But to finish first you have to finish. And the GRM has been fairly reliable this season as well. They've had 7 failures to finish, which compares very well against the likes of Pedersen, who have had a lot of failures to finish. Let me count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 failures to finish for Pedersen. Just a few corners to go now. Here's the Lafagna complex. And Bottas navigates through that expertly. And it's going to be a thin 1-2 as well. Bottas from Raikkonen. Now that's a very rare sight. And just looking further down the order. Verne has got 1.5 seconds between himself and Robert Kubica, so the battle for third looks to be secure. Perez versus Hamilton, that's 2.4 seconds the gap, and Magnussen versus Ricciardo, that's 2.5. Marshals are out very early because they can see the race coming to an end, and Valtteri Bottas can see his race coming to an end by taking the checkered flag first. JRM's first win of the season, and Bottas's third in his career. And Kimi Raikkonen comes home in second position for Finland 1-2. Jean-Eric Verne will take third, that's his third podium of the season, Gajera's third podium of the season in fact, and Robert Kubica will come home in fourth position. The very steady Robert Kubica, I think he's due a podium soon. Spa wasn't his day, as it turns out to be. Sergio Perez takes a very splendid fifth position for himself and Pedersen. Hamilton 6th, and from 18th on the grid, Magnussen driving very well to take 7th. And Daniel Ricciardo completes the point scorers, and the unlucky Felipe Massa 9th. There's Hülkenberg in 10th, FJR bound Nico Hülkenberg. Spent his entire career at Mitchell, this is his 6th season, and seemingly his final season with Mitchell. Grosjean 12th after I remember seemed to be an incident at Lecombe, that was it, mirroring Jenson Button's error, Button finishing 14th, so he did take Benjamin Pryor in the end, so Pryor takes a finish in his first race. He'll have higher engine modes to play with next time out at Monza. Now you can see some very key retirements, Vettel, Rosberg, Gonzalez and Alonso, and to a certain extent Stoffel Van Dorn as well, because he did look threatening. So the gap stays at 28 points between Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel. Could have quite easily shrunk down to 16, but it wasn't meant to be for Vettel. Kimi Raikkonen moves up to third in the championship now for Meister. He's 4 points ahead of Thomas Gonzalez, and Valtteri Bottas shoots up to fifth, ahead of Felipe Massa. Completing the top 11, Robert Kubica, Daniel Ricciardo, Jean-Eric Verne, Lewis Hamilton and Kevin Magnussen. And the gap between Tornado and Meister comes down a little bit, it's now 50 points. Climax 1 and 2 in the championship, but they're also last with Mitchell. They're also 7th with Andrew Racing. Shake and Bake hold on to third, but only just now. Look at Gajera stalking up to them, and GRM might do something about Shake and Bake as well. Willow's 6th, and then Andrew's 7th, so it's now 4 points, the gap between FJR, Pedersen, X-Light and Mitchell in the favour of FJR for now. We move over from Belgium to Italy, and from Spa to Monza, for round number 15 of the FF1M Championship. We'll see you then.